I've just been looking at a video on Zomgit's Chris channel about feminism and about what real feminism consists of. It's a bit of a dodgy term, isn't it, real? Because as soon as you try to establish yourself as a real feminist, or real anything really, you're claiming some kind of authentic status and reducing everyone else to the status of a simulation or a copy or a fake or something like that. So it's always going to be crap whoever uses it. But this is a particularly interesting one, I thought, because it's I may be misinterpreting what the message of this one is, but it seems to be about the well, two things. Firstly, about what's sometimes called sex positive feminism, which is fine, but out of that, on the legalization of pornography and the legalization of prostitution. Yeah, I don't know what I feel about that really. It's an interesting question, isn't it? Because on the one hand, there is the series of discussions about the ownership of one's own body, and one's own body as a resource that one can exploit for all kinds of reasons. And then there's the fact that that body is embedded in a society and a culture which comes with all kinds of historical and contemporary baggage, and structures of economics and structures of employment and structures of power which precede and embrace these bodies in strange ways sometimes. I suppose I'm reminded of this of a colleague of mine from a place I used to work at, not a present colleague, but she was a great person and a very staunch political feminist, and very well educated and very up on the politics of feminism. And certainly that she could present arguments which were, quite honestly, far better than any of the arguments I've heard on YouTube about feminism, and give much better accounts of any of the arguments I've ever heard on YouTube for feminist theory. And she used to teach feminist theory. But one day I was talking to her, and she said, and she was going through a difficult period in her life, and she said, sometimes I just wish I could find a rich man who'd just take care of me. And she didn't really mean it. It was she didn't really mean it. It was a little bit like me saying, I wish I could just win the lottery, or I wish the ground would just open up and swallow me. It's a kind of nebulous wish that solves the problems. It's a Deus ex machina wish in which all the problems become solved through some act of divine intervention. But the divine intervention in this particular woman's case was the possibility that a rich man would save her. Now that's a possibility which would never occur to a man. It would never occur for that particular Deus ex machina. Would never be possible for a man. It would never be a fantasy for him. I know it isn't possible for most women, of course not. But it doesn't even feature on the horizon of male imagination that we could ever be saved from the difficulties of life by the intervention of a rich woman. It's sometimes bandied about in joke form or in movie plot form. It doesn't really exist in the male imagination. But I think it does in women's imagination. And it does for good reason, because a lot of women are, if not saved, at least are kind of slotted into the logic of economic systems in which men do provide. And that's kind of fine for the most part. I have no real issue with that. But the fact that it has this mythological and imaginary component to it, I think, is rather odd, really. And the kind of logics that people talk about when we kind of unpack that, make me feel a little bit uncomfortable, and I think should make us all feel uncomfortable, actually. Because to try to unpack that sentiment and try to ground that imagination in some richer environment, you kind of have to draw upon things like differentials in the way that reproduction works. Men can screw as many people as they like and get as many people pregnant as they want. Women can't. You're probably familiar with this evolutionary model. Therefore, men go for quantity, women go for quality. That's broadly how it's notionally works. I mean, is that really the logic of that? Because that's the kind of logic that provides the economic opportunity that my friend, this woman, was referring to. If men go for quantity and women go for quality, then you become a saleable commodity. And the biological determinism, which so much feminism, as far as I'm aware, has been about trying to refute, and has been trying to to counter by changing the culture is it just seems a little bit retrograde to me. So yeah, so it's a little bit disappointing. Because on one hand, you know, I'd quite like to live in a world in which I could just, you know, if I was a bit horny, I could just, you know, pay 25 quid and get a blowjob. I quite like to. In one way, I quite like that. But it is a bit sleazy, isn't it? It is a bit fucking sleazy. Yeah, yeah. And it's sexist, actually, isn't it? I mean, I'm too old to ever be a prostitute myself, but I don't think there's much openings there for men. I don't think there's a lot of male opportunities in the sex industry. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think it's primarily a female game, really. Anyway, I mean, I enjoyed the video. I enjoyed the video a lot. And clearly, the group of women initiated by Zomgets Chris in this particular one, in as much as it was her channel, clearly have a wider reach. There are far more subscribers looking at this video, and we all know that in kind of Freudian terms, the larger your subscriber base, the larger your electronic dick you can get capable of waving. So there's certainly a more potent argument being waged by this particular group of women. Yeah, I just want to return to this term "real." Is this really anything real about this? Isn't it just a difference of opinion about one minor element of a much greater set of complex issues? Isn't that really what this is?